read a sample chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some questions. We'll take some questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Brad, why don't you start since you were ready to start anyway?
Okay. I got to start recording these. I should have done that a while ago. But see, I was just rambling earlier. I'm like, she just keeps laughing.
It's all the dirty jokes he's been telling. It's so
Well,
terrible.
now I'm very upset that I missed it. 'Cause
I know, we had this
I like
whole-
a good ribald joke.
We had this whole thing about Virginia that
You
we're
had to
going
hide the
on,
pictures.
and, and there was a circus midgets, and
Midgets left? We missed the midgets?
Yeah, they just
Damn
came in
it.
and danced around there.
Just left.
Damn it.
They just left, like literally.
You didn't see them?
If you look down, you probably would have seen them.
I just had to look straight.
Straight, they were right there. So, okay, this is chapter 4. And I'm not doing voices of all these people because I'm not that talented. Don't leave us, Christian, Lauren pleaded with her soft, young voice full of dread. Please, I'm scared, her twin sister Jamie cried beside her. Both desperately reaching for him. Everything is going to be all right, kids, he replied, as calm as he could, trying to subvert their fear. There's no room left in here. I'll be in the van right behind you. We'll finish our story later today. Don't worry. We'll take care of them, Christian, said an older, heavily tattooed man standing beside the sliding door. Get to the other van. We don't have much time. Placing the children into different vehicles was his idea. With all the horrible things that could and did go wrong over the last 6 months, it was the best bet for survival. Separating them ensured that no one group would be tasked with their protection should something go horribly awry, and so that all wouldn't perish during the single incident. He cursed under his breath as he ran to the van waiting for him. Echoes of gunfire filled the loading bay as the number of weapons discharging spent rounds increased. As the door to the kids' van closed, Christian's eyes filled with horror. The crazed mob was heading that way. Seconds later, he was slammed to the ground. An intense pain raged through his body as he instinctively put up his arms to shield his face from the attack. Gnarled teeth bit into him, and he let out a shriek. A blonde-haired woman dressed in tattered clothes pulled a chunk of skin free, the smell of rot almost making Christian vomit. Her attack was joined by others as the horde swarmed over the van. The screams of the children cut through the flood of the moans and growls, assaulting his senses with a horrifying and numbing blow. It was in that moment that the surge of adrenaline pumped through his veins and gave him the strength he needed. He shoved the woman off of him and struggled to his feet. Fingernails scratched into his flesh, but none of the wounds brought pain, only the motivation required to break free from the mob of the infected. He knew what needed to be done. The guardians of the door had fallen. Christian could see that from here. It was up to the rest of the survivors. Did not get out of here soon, all would be lost. His fist connected with the face of a middle-aged Asian man wearing what used to be a business suit. Teeth fell from the man's mouth as the bones in his hands cracked from the pressure behind the blow. He ran as soon as the businessman fell. No longer could he hear the pounding footsteps or the screams from all the chaos around him. As he passed the third van in the convoy, he briefly glanced to the twins' vehicle, only to see blood splattered on the windshield and 2 men being overtaken by the ravaging pack. He fought his tears as he continued. There was only one thing that mattered to him now. Only one act that could possibly save the remaining survivors. He had to open the large bay door. The rest had to survive. Fire and shrapnel ripped into Christian's back as a violent explosion rocked the van only moments after he passed it. Concrete slivers bit into his skin as a concussion blast sent him to the floor. Quickly, he scrambled back to his feet without daring to look at the carnage behind. Sharp, stabbing pains coursed through his body with every step, but still he ran. Faster and faster, he pushed his legs to their fullest. The adrenaline burned through his veins as his heart pounded violently against his chest. His legs burned with an intensity he had never felt before. He had never run this fast in his entire life. The door was in full view, just a few steps away from, and for a moment he wondered why somebody else hadn't gone for the door. They had a general evacuation procedure, but things had just happened too fast, he guessed. He knew in his heart Fred was to blame. The man was like a bad politician, not caring for anyone but himself and serving his own agenda. Deep inside, Christian hoped that Fred would have been one of today's victims, but things shouldn't have happened like this regardless. The infected had found a way into the building somehow, and in force. The only thing that made sense of this whole predicament was that the sun still sat in the sky. If it were night, If it were night, this scenario would have played out completely different, in favor of the survivors. As he ran past Jacob's short bus, Christian stole a glance at its occupants through the windshield. His heart was relieved at the sight of Sarah's chestnut-colored hair, flooding him with memories of his wife. The sight of her also confirmed that Jake had made it onto the bus. The children in his custody would be safe. And he was glad that the side windows had been covered. The children needed protection from what was happening outside. His eyes locked with Jacob's for an instant. He gave Christian a nod as he ran past. Christian knew that with Jacob at the head of the group, they would be safe. Their release was only a few feet away. With a crash, he slammed into the wall next to the door. His hands fumbled for a second before releasing the locking mechanism. All of the bay doors creaked open, allowing the morning sunlight to spill through the opening. The sun reminding him of the day his wife first told him that he was going to be a father. As he stood there, lost in thought, warm blood started flowing down his left arm again as an infected bit into his flesh. She would have had a baby around this time. Broken fingernails scraped flesh from his face. He would have been a father. Hands ripped at his clothes to reveal the succulent skin. Everything was going to be perfect. The contents of his abdomen slid out into awaiting hands. He knew he would be with his wife and son soon. Blood sprayed into the air as more teeth bit into his neck. Christian felt relieved watching Jacob's bus drive by his deathbed. As the infected devoured him, his eyes locked with Jacob's. Christian wanted to tell him that everything was going to be okay, but he could no longer speak. Hands were tearing at his mouth and body, and more infected pounced on him. Jacob aimed his pistol at him. Christian tried his best to smile. The muzzle flashed from the ignition of gunpowder, and all went black. See, it's a feel-good story. There's so much love and happening there. And that's just one of the characters that was, he plays a role. He kind of sets up for a lot of it. Just in that chapter, that they know at that point in time that the kids are kind of an important part to save if you want to survive anyhow. So,
The whereabouts in the story? Because that
chapter 4.
That takes place chapter 4. Very good. Thank you. Mike?
All right, this is going to be the condensed first chapter for an online serial called Working Class Zombie. It's basically about reintegrating zombies into the human race for one reason or the other, and haven't discovered those reasons yet. We're still pretty early in the story. So, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, Martin Brasco says, I'm here to show you how you, yes you, can turn yourself into a second-rate citizen. He clasps his hands and moves briskly back and forth across the stage. You have much to look forward to. As he continues, I turn to my left and catch sight of what used to be a young woman sitting next to me. Though somewhat attractive in her own right, she really needs to clean herself up if she expects second citizenship. Didn't even dignify herself by removing all the blood off her face from her last meal. That's sure to deter most families, even those most enthralled with our common. Her skin is a dark gray. She must be one of the first to have risen all those years ago. At least this woman still has both of her eyes, unlike most of us in here. Just not the manners to keep herself clean. The humans here will surely frown upon her condition unless she cuts a deal with one of the lower class families out at the wall. She looks to me, and I find myself forcing a smile and then turning back to our speaker. There is no excuse why even the most wretched looking of us can't gain self-employment. I mean, look at me. He's right. The man is a walking, talking skeleton. His face is the only area that I can see parts of skin, especially around both cheeks. Tendrils of darkened tissue dance as he moves, and yet he appears to have found his niche, a working class zombie. Though I may not have the appearance to work with a family or in a school, Brasco says, I, just like each and every one of you, still have a purpose, and it's up to each and every one of us to discover how we can benefit mankind and find that purpose. And that is why I've designed this course. My brothers and sisters of the Living Challenge, my 5-step program, if followed to the core, will take you down the path to second citizenship. You will once again get to see what it is like among the living, serving a higher purpose than just roaming out here in the waste of what once was. Members of the crowd start cheering, and some of them even stand up and make poor attempts at clapping. I choose to do neither. Our speaker continues. My 5 steps to second citizenship are simple. The first rule, forget the past. We need to forget who we once were. I think that's bullshit. I fight every day with my decaying mind to remember who I had been when I was alive. If I could sleep, I'm sure I'd dream the past. Control, Brasco says. That is the second step. We, as a whole, need to learn how to control our hunger and rage when we are around the living and even each other. He stops at the podium center stage and leans forward, extending a skeletal arm. Life beyond the walls of the wasteland is much different than what you've been accustomed to. Inside, there are rules that must be followed, which is why we must each find the resolve to control ourselves. Do you really think that a human that pays your credits and feeds you wants to have his or her investment being torn apart? There is a unanimous no among the attendants of the seminar. Good, good. We'll be fed, so there is no need to try to attack one of the citizens, for that will surely be the end of your own life. Don't fool yourselves, though. Humans are still human, as they always will be. Which brings me to the third step of my program, tolerance. There is corruption, robbery, and rape. Crime runs rampant behind these walls. Our rising has caused degeneration among their ranks, but you must never attack a human. For the one that you may attack, you or your possessors could quite possibly be your next meal. There are laws for humans, too. But Martin's smile soon turns into a frown. But I have word, my friends, coming straight from the high-ranking council members, that banishment to the wastelands will be a thing of the past. He sighs. It seems they're cutting those of us out here off. The days of fresh meat are limited for all who exist beyond the walls, which is why we must learn to tolerate the human condition. Only through tolerance will we be able to coexist. The fourth step, my friends, is one of the most important ones of them all. Above all else that may be going on inside that rotting head of yours, you mustn't forget to have the will. In order to succeed as a second-rate citizen, you need to have, or at least show them that you have the will to do their bidding, no matter how embarrassing or degrading that may be. A pale, sleeveless, and near-skinless arm shoots up. Martin acknowledges with a nod of the head. And what is your question, dear? I'm impressed with his patience. I figured him to be a short-fused individual, but he even smiles as he speaks. I've heard that some humans wish to do things to us, things that nobody's supposed to. I'm taken aback, and I shift in my seat until I can find the source of that soft, innocent, but garbled voice. 2 rows up and 3 chairs to the right, I find a girl that could have been no older than 10 when she passed. The poor thing is badly chewed, her hair tangled and matted with clots of dry mixture. My dear young thing, Brasco chuckles sinisterly, there are many things that the breeders force us to do, and it's up to us to decide if their deeds are worth enduring. The trials of life are often many and quite often unforgiving. There are those out there that wish nothing more to exact revenge on us for the crimes committed by our brethren. And believe me when I say that there are many out there that wish to see us suffer. A brief moment of silence ensues, and I find that I am doing what most of the crowd is, looking around confused. Where can he be trying to go with this? Martin Brasco is the seller of the dead, and his program is aimed at helping those like me achieve second citizenship. And yet, at the moment, as with it appears to be most of the crowd, I find myself dissuaded. But their worst is comparable to a hot meal once a week, Brasco says. Size that up while you evaluate your coming decision, young one. All of you must understand that the most important thing is to feed. It is the flesh and the organs of the living that keep us mindful undead. Have we not all seen the drifters, those poor souls that roam the wastelands trapped in a withered shell, unable to do anything but shamble or crawl? They can't even end their own existence. Now I ask you, which is worse? Nothing is comparable to the drifters, the true zombies. They are mindless sacks of dusty decay, truly driven by hunger and nothing else. I don't know what I'd do if I became one of them. And to touch on what the young one said, I've heard of humans doing sexual things with corpses, and that was when I was alive. That's the only thing I can think of this following this girl's question. Had she been raped? If so, was it before or after reanimation?
No.
By the expression on each of your faces, I gather that you are questioning many things. Everything, maybe. Brasco puts it on his best forced smile. There is no better way to put it other than bluntly. We are cursed races, both human and formerly human. We, as a collective, living and unliving, are paying for a crime our ancestors committed, and whether it is known or even thought about, it is a fact. The humans suffer more than we do. The only thing they have to look forward to is us. It's either that or permanent death, and not many these days are having their bodies incinerated. There have been many newly reanimated lately. There's still dead carcasses tossed over the walls, another fact I can't wrap my mind around. Our ranks have been growing a lot these past few months, and I can't help but to wonder what the breeders are doing to thwart the banished, those cast out from society. Since our reintegration to the human race, as slaves of course, there has been jealousy among the mortals. Their free minds jump to conclusions that were never meant to be reached. To put it simply, many of them don't feel that we deserve existence, Brasco says. And we are purchased from time to time for our unwillingness to die and other things, hence questions by our young guests. And this brings me to the final step of my program. He looks to each of us. Acceptance. There is another bout of silence, Brasco letting the word seep in. Acceptance, my brethren. We need to learn to accept what we are, not what we were or what we want to be now. There are those out there who hate us. Believe it or not, there are those out there that take to us better than their own kind. And we need to accept that humans will be humans, and no matter what, we will be fed. For surely there will be an uprising. Uprising. Part of me likes the sound of that, but then my gut rumbles, my gullet dancing the dance of desperation. Behavior, it seems, is going to be the best way for me and those like me to consume on a regular basis. Maybe then I could remember who those images in my head are. I'd have never imagined my life to be so lonesome. And as Martin walks off the stage to talk to the breeders outside, the crowd roars. I find myself standing along with Stained Face next to me and clap as he steps out of the exit near the stage. I sense a certain burning in me again. Maybe it's the fact that I'm one step closer to a fresh meal, or maybe it's the fact that his speech really did liven me up. I've heard he has a way with the words, and now I find that to be the truth, as for the first time in a long time, I'm smiling on the inside.